we know, according to Proverbs, if you store up little over little, you will be fine towards the end of your life, right? You will have a comfortable retirement, like $100 invested from 20 to 65 gets you like $3 million or something crazy. $100 a month gets you like $3 million. Like, it's insane how compound interest works. So that's a lot of what Dave Ramsey preaches. Live on less than what you make, get out of debt, get on a budget, so on and so forth.
Yep.
Right? Which is all fire and necessary because you have a couple missteps with debt and now you're a slave forever, right?
Yeah.
And the borrower is a slave to the lender. That was point one of the talk yesterday. So I was thinking about like that is so many people aren't even getting that. Like so many people aren't able to live on less than what they make. They're not able to live on a budget. They are in debt. They've made a mess of their life. At the very least, bare minimal, you should not be crazy with money because who is going to trust you with true riches if you can't handle worldly riches? That's what we preached out of Luke 16. That's what Jesus said, right?
Yep.
Who will trust you with real wealth if you can't even handle worldly wealth? Who will trust you with your own property if you can't even take care of someone else's property? Boom, right? So that's bare minimal. Now, here's the flip side. The scriptures warn against this. 1 Timothy chapter 6, this is really good. It says, but godliness with contentment is great gain, for we brought nothing into the world and we can take nothing out of it. I use scripture to interpret scripture, right? That's important. So we brought nothing into this world and we can take nothing out of it. Fact, yet Proverbs says, a righteous man leaves an inheritance for his grandchildren. And both. Can't take nothing with you, despite the Pharaoh's trying, but you also are supposed to leave something for your children. Righteous men leave property behind, according to Proverbs, right? And then he says, but if we have food and clothing, we will be content with that. Those who want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap and into many foolish things and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Some people, eager for money, have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. So the Bible warns against wanting to get rich, which will lead many people to wander from the faith. And it says, for the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. So here's the other side. And this is what I'm seeing, and I don't know how to navigate this. There's a lot of people trying to get on YouTube. There's a lot of people trying to start drop shipping businesses. There's a lot of people trying to do online commerce. There's a lot of people trying to start things because they think they will get rich fast. And when you think you're going to get rich fast, when the desire is money, not contentment, and serving God, building his kingdom, not your castle, and then the money will come when it comes. When the North Star is money, when the North Star is a utilitarian aspect of how much can I make for the least amount of effort.
Yeah.
Money's still your God at that point, right? And even that's kind of lazy if you think about it, right? Because if you're trying to make the most by doing the least, that's not really a Christian work ethic.
Yeah.
So you got two extremes. One extreme is you're complete wasteful and you're just sloppy with your life.
Yep.
And then you really need a Dave Ramsey stuff. Like that is necessary. You got to get out of debt. You got to get on a budget. You got to save for retirement. That's one extreme. The other extreme is there is seeming to be this rising up of Christians and young people that want to get rich fast.
Yes.
As fast as possible, which is dangerous.
Hit me up 5 years ago.
Yeah, seriously, right? Which is dangerous because now you're not moving as ethically as you can be. You're not being as generous as you can be. And it's less to do with how can I add the most amount of value through doing hard things that I am going to sacrifice for the betterment of others. Now it's about how can I come up as quickly as possible to be as rich as possible. And I think there's a middle ground option. You could work a normal job and you can save $100 a month from 20 to 60 and be a multimillionaire. But how fun is it to be a multimillionaire when you're 60? Right?
Yeah. It's comfortable.
It's comfortable.
But it's not fun.
But it's not fun.
Yeah.
Or you can squander all your money away and live like a complete derelict and say that you're getting persecuted for the gospel. No, you're just being persecuted for being dumb because you didn't know how to freaking manage a checkbook. You could do that. Or you could try to get rich quick and ruin your family, shipwreck your relationships, do some unethical things, join a multi-level thing, trying to just get quick, trying to drop ship, trying to do some kind of, not a scam, but something schemy.
Yeah, and at the very least, you're wasting years that you could have been actually working hard and developing a valuable skill, but instead you put all this time into like drop shipping.
Or you could find a skill or a task or a job that most people don't want to do, get good at it, and make a comfortable living now. Right? Like that's the other option. So I was listening to the Entree Leadership, Mike Rowe, Dave Ramsey, really good episode. I can't react to it right now because Ramsey always flags everything. But they were talking about—
They gave us the last one, though.
They did give us the last one. They were talking about— maybe we will react to it, but they were talking about like there's this void in the marketplace of all these dudes who just checked out and not working. Then there's other huge shortages in the trades, plumbing, electrical. And so those people are always going to make great livings. If you are an employee or you're your own boss in a trade, like you're always going to make a great living. The question is going to come down to the macro economy is, are you going to wait 4 days for a plumber to come to your house? Or are you going to wait a couple hours for a plumber to come to your house?
Yeah.
Right? And so I think there's this tension of people who want to get rich, but not always in the wisest way. While there's all these other opportunities out here to do stuff where you could actually make a great living, but you're going to have to do some stuff you don't want to do. And you could find joy and dignity in that. And a lot of times you can use that to cash flow your other passion ventures and your passion projects. I'm kind of doing it to an extent now with music. Yeah. Music barely breaks even for me. We don't really generate much money from music, right? Based on what we're paying for producers and what we're paying Chris Mack to shoot stuff, we're not really generating a profit off of music.
Yeah.
But I can do this that then allows me to cash flow a passion project.
Yeah.
Or to make a film. Or to whatever, right?
Very true.
And so I think there's this other option where you can get to a place where you're making a couple $100,000 a year in your 30s or even your late 20s or your 40s, and you could actually enjoy it and not be boggled down and every hour is owning you, and you're not trying to get rich, potentially shipwrecking your faith, hurting your relationship, hurting your family. Like I think there's a balance there that I want to explore and potentially speak into.
I think the great balance between not pursuing and then pursuing the biggest profit margin, the most amount of money for the least amount of work, is pursuing something that can make you a good amount of money while not ensuring the least amount of work, but ensuring the most amount of transformation or benefit for the person buying that. If you can do those two things together, and there is a factor of scalability in there, right? Because you can't just do everything. Then there's literally no scalability, and you're at the same place. You can only get one person at $2,000 a month type of thing. But there's a level of scalability. But you can ensure that you're working hard, and it doesn't match the formula of get rich quick because you're actually doing too much. Actually doing stuff. You're actually helping the person too much. I think that's a great spot to be in. And this is a lot for the business people. The sooner that you can be okay with the idea of having a gross revenue and a net profit, and that net profit being less than 50% of what your gross revenue is, the better off you'll be. I'm fine without $1 million business, build a $500,000 a year business. It's like, okay, but like the net profit of that, what you might actually be able to take home is probably less than half.
That's right.
Like, so are you actually that passionate about it? And do you actually want that much transformation? That's the easier way to figuring that out. Is it like, if you're in it just for the money, then the idea of taking home, like you paying yourself only 25% of the actual business revenue because you have some net profit that goes to retained earnings and all this stuff. Like, if that doesn't sound cool to you, then the whole idea probably isn't the best idea for you.
Sure.
You know?
Sure. Pixel Magic said it very much depends on the person's intent behind getting rich. Are they going to benefit others with their wealth or hoard it for their own ego? That's a great point. I like that point. Here's my concern about that point is sometimes good intent can still lead you to hell. And I'm not talking about it in a salvation standpoint, right? I'm talking about like everyone who joins a multi-level marketing thing has great intent.
Sure.
I want to change my family. I want to change my financial situation. I want to give more to my church. That's how they get you. Dream about what could you do if you were making an extra $20,000 a month, right?
We're going to give you purpose.
We're going to give you purpose. You're going to help your family. You're going to help your loved ones. You're going to help that single mom. Great intent. But it's often at the expense of kind of being shisty with your relationships and peddling a product that people don't want. And here's the worst part. The opportunity cost of figuring out what you are actually good at, what you get paid to do, what you like, what the need is that you're solving, what problem is there in the world, right? Could you go be working for someone else that can help you develop those skills and pay you to potentially do your own thing if that's what you want to be an entrepreneur? Could you be better off figuring out an entrepreneur situation where you're an entrepreneur within someone else's organization? Like, that's the stuff. And it's all great intent. But I don't think intent should be the benchmark. Like, I'm personally weary of trying to make as much money for the sake of making as much money, even if you have these, benevolent dreams for what you're going to do once you get there. Because if you're not doing it now, if you're not being faithful with a little bit, if you're not already generous, if you're not already serving in your local church, if you're not already sacrificing, if you're not already doing those things now when you have a little, you're not going to start magically doing that stuff, right? When you have a lot. Like that's not how humans work, So anyway, I want to hear from you guys. What do you guys think about this topic? Because I think it's an interesting conversation of like, you don't want to get rich in your 20s.
Yeah.
And you are statistically very likely to potentially be rich in your 60s. Just
straight statistics.
Very simple tortoise, not the hare investing.
Yep.
But is there a middle ground of, I'm not greatly rich, but I'm content and I have enough and I live a modest, humble lifestyle, but I'm actually able to enjoy some of the benefits of taking my family on trips and doing cool stuff and helping people out and being like, where is that middle line?
A side note, it comes down to like patience for the younger folk.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think a great patience exercise when you're actually thinking about this stuff is look at all of the people that you consider successful.
Mm-hmm.
So who are the creators that you're like, oh, if I could just be a big YouTuber like this person or whatever, take a list of all.
Mm-hmm.
Write them all down. And then take note of what you believe the average age of that group is.
That's good.
Oftentimes, you'll have some people that are really young. You'll have some people that are really old. Mm-hmm. But oftentimes, you're going to find that list of people are going to be in 30s and 40s.
Yep.
And so that's a great patience exercise to be like, oh, I want to create stuff like I'm saying for the YouTubers. I want to create content like them. I want to be booming like them. Mm-hmm. But it's like you're also not allowing yourself the time to develop skills, knowledge, expertise like they did. So once you come to terms with that, that's a great patience exercise to be like, oh, what's the stuff I need to do in this decade to prepare myself for the next decade? Mm-hmm. And then when you start thinking like that, it becomes a lot more calming. It becomes less about like, how can I do this faster? Mm-hmm. What's the trick where, because there's gonna be someone that watches this video where it's like, okay, I don't want to get rich fast, but I don't want to be rich old. How can I still be rich by 24, Ruslan?
Yeah.
And like, okay, I'm just gonna apply the things that Ruslan said. I need to have intent. I need to have. It's not intent. It's you know what I'm saying. Yeah. They're gonna like still try to apply all the things, but it's like patience.
Yeah.
Breathe.
One, I think when you're young, your perception of time is skewed.
Super.
Right. So like you're 26 now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm about to be 40.
Yep.
Right. So just your perception of a year is longer than my perception of a year simply because I've lived more years.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you're 20 and I'm 40 and I've lived twice as many years than you, my view of and a lot of your first 6-7 years, you probably didn't really even pay attention to how long a year went by.
Probably a decade.
Right. So you've probably had a decade and a half of like paying attention to time.
Yeah.
I've had more time to pay attention to time. Therefore, my perception of time is totally different. So I understand that, like, holy moly, like, I feel like we just snapped our finger and we're almost halfway through the year.
Yes.
Right?
100%. Yeah.
And so I think that's a huge one. It's just there's a distortion. So younger people tend to think they can get more done with less time.
Yes.
It just is what it is. And when you get older, you just start realizing, like, yeah, you're not gonna have the 6-pack in 6 weeks. It's gonna take 6 months.
Yep.
Like it's going to take long. Everything you think you can accomplish, you could probably accomplish a lot of the stuff, unless you're just like, I want to be an astronaut, some stupid, right? Most of the stuff you could do, it's just going to take way longer than you think it's going to take. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the benefit of being wiser. Now, I'm not saying that God can't bless people who are 23, 24, 25 with being 7-figure earners. And like, I'm not saying that doesn't happen. It can happen, and it can happen ethically, and it can happen to the glory of God. Mm-hmm. I'm saying it's rare.
Yes.
That's all I'm saying. I'm saying it's rare. I'm saying it's not as common. Now, but all you got to do, like next time you think about this verse, all you got to do is remember Scripture interprets Scripture, right? So real easy exercise. All you got to do is, okay, so someone's going to tell you, hey, you're bad because you're trying to build wealth and leave an inheritance, even though Proverbs says leave an inheritance, even though Proverbs says good fathers leave properties. You're terrible because Jesus said this one verse. I got one verse to shut down the rest of Scripture.
Yep.
Right. The issue with this verse is all you got to do is just scroll down and actually figure out what it's talking about. All you got to do is just scroll down. Verse 25. When the disciples heard this, they were greatly astonished and asked, who then can be saved? So what is that telling us? That's telling us that they're hearing this and they're thinking this is about salvation. And then look at what Jesus says right after this. Jesus looked at them and said, with man, this is impossible, but with God, all things are possible. So this verse is not saying that rich people can't go to heaven. This verse is not teaching that in order to be saved, you have to sell everything you have. This verse is saying that if you have money as your God and your possessions as your God, you're in serious trouble because Jesus is the only one that could be on the throne. That's what this is talking about, right? Because this entire passage is about a rich young ruler coming and asking Jesus, what does he have to do? How does he have to perform? What rules does he have to keep? And he's being self-righteous. And this is also under the cultural context that people viewed rich people differently in our society. In our society, you guys you frown down upon rich people. There's a lot of Marxist, communistic thinking. In their context, they thought rich people were like blessed. They thought rich people were good, right? And so Jesus is dispelling this notion that rich people are superior, and he's speaking to the heart of you can't have anything that comes before him, including money, right? Money is a terrible master, but a great servant. We don't use people and love money. We use money to love people, right? And so this verse is actually saying that this is about salvation. With man, this is impossible. With God, all things are possible. Because who would they ask right after? Who can be saved, right? So if you're reading this and you're thinking, you can't be rich and love God, regardless on if you're rich when you're 20, 35, or 60, if that's your verse, that's setting you up for failure. You're going to be so heavenly minded, you're of no earthly good. And there's a lot in the scriptures about being earthly good. There's a lot in there from Jesus' own words. Again, go read Luke 16, read Matthew 25. So that's the dangerous part about peddling these sort of like one-liner gotchas, is you're not even being honest to what the scriptures are saying. You're just kind of trying to poke out a verse and not even reading the full context of the passage. That's very, 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 very dangerous eisegesis. And it's toxic to young people who intrinsically, especially young men, intrinsically they know they need to do something with their life, right? Not to mention the proverb. Paul writes that he who does not provide for the needs of his family is worse than a non-believer and is denied the faith, right? So in this context, if you're talking about providing for the needs of your family, guess what? If you as a man just provide for the needs of your family, if you as a man just create an opportunity for your wife to stay home, you are in the 0.01% of the world's wealth, which means that verse is about you. If your family makes more than $60,000 a year, if your household makes more than $60,000 a year, you are in the 1% of the world's wealth. That verse is about you, my brother. That verse is about everyone watching this on a $1,000 device. You are rich on a global standard. So Jesus is saying that anyone who's rich can't be saved? Surely that's not what he's saying. Surely that's not what he's teaching. We know there's other people that were very wealthy and influential who were a part of Jesus' ministry. Right? Not a part of his ministry, but were a part of having him buried. Whose tomb was he buried in? Joseph of Arimathea. A rich man, a rich secret disciple is whose tomb Jesus was buried in. So God uses all people from all walks of life, right? So I think that's the dangerous part, is like, be very careful with anytime anyone tries to pull a verse out, well, money is the root of all evil. Actually, money is a root to all evil. So you're butchering the verse. Hey, Jesus says it's harder for a camel to enter. Yeah, and what's the verse right after that said? What were they wrestling with? Oh, they're wrestling with salvation. Who can be saved? So just be very, 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 very careful, because one, it's just bad Bible. Like it's just bad Bible study. Two, it's ruining young men's ability to be what God wired them to be, which is to be providers, protectors, and priests. You're trying to deflate the thing that God put in young men to go out and to kill something and drag it home. Like that's very, 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 very dangerous to do that, because I don't know about you, but I believe if we're placed in this time and in this place and with these opportunities, that God is allowing you and I to be faithful with our time, talent, and treasure in this climate. It was different 2,000 years ago in Jesus' time, right? It was a different 1,500 years ago when the church, or 1,800 years ago when the church was being persecuted, when Nero was burning Christians at the stake. It was a different context. So if we're put in this context where $100 a month from 20 to 60 makes you a multimillionaire, why would you not do that? Like, respectfully, like, why would you not do that?
Yeah.
Why would you not be responsible as a grown man to make sure that you retire with dignity and that you could pass down an inheritance to your grandchildren? Like, why would you not do that? Because of toxic poverty theology, right? And again, I'm not saying name it, claim it, brab it, glab it, your words become your words. I'm not saying that either, because that's poison as well, right? But poverty theology is very dangerous, and it's very, very dangerous for young men to have someone pull out a verse and be like, "Whoa, you want to get out of debt? Jesus says you're hard for an eye come a needle." Like, can't love God and can't serve God and money. Like, and you're missing literally all those passages, all those verses are around passages that are talking about something different and giving you a different application point. You can't serve both God and money is on the back of Jesus talking about how you can't be trusted with real riches if you're not faithful with worldly wealth. You're not going to have property of your own if you're not faithful with someone else's property. Like the whole passage is about stewardship and managing things God's way. Hey, thank you so much for watching that video. Guys, I believe that one of the best ways you can build a business is by first building a platform online. So Zach Sparazzo puts together a free training for you on the #1 metric you can be looking for to explode your YouTube platform. Click the link in the pinned comment below so you can start that now. All right? I'll see you over there. Peace.